That's the base here with Andrew. So I'm Alex with Acid Base. Waiting for Hector. I'm a truck driver now. I got my CEO. Gotta try it. Mexican Coke in a bottle. So we arrived to Airbnb number 2. I didn't set up the mics at all. Airbnb in Monterey. This is actually just like enough.
2 men. 2 paths.
So we're gonna miss the bike cutoff.
1 mission.
The open water is a beast.
1 unforgettable story.
20 minutes out from the start of Ironman.
I'm having some regrets here, man. Dude, I want a better bike. Oh! Ah, there's Lombard.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Podcast Acid Base. We're going to jump into today's show with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Michael Lombard.
Back to 30 days of hot takes with no context. Day 11. Europe and the West abandoned Christianity to chase consumerism and hyper-individualism, while Serbia kept its soul.
Mr. Michael Lombard, welcome to Podcast Acid Base. Welcome to the Serbia recap. Nice shirt. How's it going, man?
Dude, what's up, man? It's glad to be here. What an intro, man. Way to make me I got goosebumps from that stuff, man.
Yeah, man. The real world content kind of took a front seat for the past 2-3 months. I'm happy to be back on the podcast. Happy to be back to weekly shows. And I want to get into it today with you, man. I mean, for the few people that don't know who you are, take us through, your career as a driver up until what you're doing now. And then we'll hop into the Serbia stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for anybody who's just tuning in or listening, my name is Michael Lombard. I'm known on the internet. I've been known on the internet since 2010 as Lombardtrucking. A name that goes back over 100 years in freight that I'm very proud of, and I'm proud to carry that legacy into the 21st century. I served in the Marine Corps from 2008, 2012. I entered the freight industry in 2017, working on the warehouse side. I was an over-the-road truck driver for 3 years. I work full time at Truck Parking Club now, but along the way, I found I went through a transformation where after I got out of the Marine Corps, things definitely teetered downwards, and I started to refine my purpose and really get back into my stride in 2018. And while working in a warehouse and then continuing over the road as a driver, I really fell into a new passion of running. I ran 5 marathons as an over the road truck driver and became a fitness coach along the way. And but full-time now. I'm full-time with partner development manager at Truck Parking Club, and I work part-time as a fitness and nutrition coach and as an amateur athlete for the nonprofit Project 61. And yeah, just all around, I'm an all-around freaking just trying to be the motivator of the freight industry in
Yeah,
short.
you've definitely changed a lot of people. I mean, you've changed the trajectory of my life along with Nick. I mean, with the health stuff, and I think fitness is a topic that takes a backseat in logistics, which shouldn't be the case. And it's good that we have people, we're moving that needle big time lately.
Yeah, when it comes, I mean, it takes a back seat in freight, and it's crazy because in the past, 10 or so years, because like when I entered the industry is right when the ELD mandate came out, and I remember hearing those gripes from drivers who had come to the warehouse, and we've seen so much technology in the past 8 years since coming into the space, and tech as an industry, they've really put health on the forefront. They've been big on mindfulness. I live here in Austin, which is, tech's Wild West, and every company is very, wellness is right on the front and center. But when it comes to the trucking industry, it kind of, you're right. There's been a backseat that's kind of taken on it. And whether it be, whatever you want to call it, it's definitely my calling from God, so to speak, to make obviously it can't be the main thing. Like there's a job to be done. There's freight that needs to be moved. There's people that need to drive these trucks. There's dispatchers that need to be on the phone. Sure. Like there's an overarching mission, but if the foundation of the people, because it's still people business, and if the foundation of those people are crumbling inside, then it's not sustainable, and it's just not right, and it's not the quality of life that I think people who do work very hard deserve. And when that conversation comes to the forefront, I think it's prioritized more. There's an equal playing field amongst the industry of being less siloed between carriers, brokers, dispatchers, and it's now across even oceans, because now we live in this landscape where that is. And when there's this commonality among that in the conversation, it can't hurt the industry. Like if it's not the priority,
I mean, fitness definitely will not hurt the industry as a whole. And I think you touched on something interesting there, right? Where fitness shouldn't be in the forefront. I mean, this is logistics, this is trucking. I think fitness is not the priority here, but it's that 10 to 20, 30% of downtime you have every day or every few days where you could utilize fitness and you could incorporate it a bit more into your life in logistics. And I think that's the thing people take sort of, they blow it out of proportion. We're not saying go run a marathon every day. We're not saying go run 15 miles every day. It's more like, hey, you could go on a 20-minute walk when your shift is done, or, when you park for the day. I mean, those small changes, even diet changes can make a big impact.
Yeah, this just popped up on my feed from somebody. I know this is from a pretty popular Instagram page with this new study where walking 30 minutes, 5 days per week leads to a 60% remission in depression versus a 26% remission with medication. So it's like,
wow,
there you go. So it's, basically triple. Like walking can triple what you can get through, forms of prescription medication. And I mean, if that doesn't make you say, hey, wow, like if you're somebody who's sitting here listening, or you're like, man, I feel like garbage right now. I mean, I've never gotten back, no matter what. I've had, tough days, especially as
never got home from a walk and felt worse.
Yeah, it's never been bad. Like I've gotten screwed and gashed by brokers before on detention, and you go for a walk, and all of a sudden, the problem doesn't matter anymore.
I mean, that's a bold take, but I think the stat you just gave out is pretty crazy. And I mean, I've been in the gym almost hitting my 1 year mark on November 1st, and I just incorporated walking about 1 or 2 weeks ago, where like I'll go every morning for like an hour walk, just like through the city, pick up I mean, it's Europe lifestyle. You go stop at the farmer's market, pick up some fruits and vegetables, grab your meat for the day. And I think the walking every day makes a big difference. Like you said, even if it's 20 or 30 minutes, that's enough every few days to spark a change.
100%.
As we move on, man, before we move on, actually, I should say, I want to talk to you briefly about Lombardtrucking, right? Because I've seen a lot of your content. I've seen the headlines, the old pictures. If you want to kind of maybe take us through the year it started up until the year it kind of, stopped being Lombardtrucking. I just want to hear a little bit more from you directly on how the business was started, how your family's name is so entrenched in trucking.
Yeah, what I love the most about that story is it's an American story. I just watched the movie Cabrini over the weekend, which is about a nun who is responsible for opening up hospitals and orphanages throughout the world, and which started in New York City. And so it's amazing to see kind of those immigrant stories, especially which said Columbus Day over the weekend in the U.S. and by all means, like that's what that holiday is supposed to represent, stories like my family's company. And kind of how it happened is my great grandfather, so my grandfather's grandfather, Nicky, and his brother John, they came to the United States in 1902. Nicky was born outside of Naples in Caserta. They arrived at Ellis Island 1902, and by 1922 they had 8 horses and 2 carriages. And so coming into the early United States, like they got fired from Scoville Manufacturing, which is a big metal manufacturer. Waterbury, Connecticut is known as the Brass City. It was the brass capital of the world. Very, very fun fact on it. It's that's what it is. Brass buttons. You name it. Brass buttons, bullets. Like Waterbury powered the United States through 2 world wars, the Civil War, and beyond, and so much. So they came there, worked odd jobs. Funny enough, one of them drove a small public transportation bus called a jitney at one point, but noticing a need so Waterbury was burgeoning at the time, very, very fast growing city, had a railroad. There was a lot of people coming to Waterbury from New York, from Ellis Island, and they, with horse and carriage, would deliver people's luggage and everything to their homes. They would move coffins for funeral homes, and they noticed that these warehouses had these loading docks that where stuff would just sit on these loading docks. And by the way, I'm referencing the story from a book that was written about Italian families in Waterbury that has my family's name in it. So this is where I'm kind of sourcing it, as well as from relatives. I have a cousin who sent me a lot of recent old newsletters and stuff that has a lot of information. So they noticed.
It's wild when you talk about trucking and logistics, and you go all the way back this far to horse and carriage, right? Because I think that's a period of logistics that people might I definitely overlook it. Just thinking about it now, that's what trucking used to be, right?
Oh, it's what even going back. The only reason why Napoleon lost in Russia was if he had trains, it would have been. If Napoleon had trains, he would have walked all the way to China. He would have taken over. People have no idea, but that's what it was.
Yeah, it's just wild to think of logistics from back then, right? And that's only 120 years ago. We're talking 100 years. We've gone from horse and carriage to some selfless driving trucks at this point.
Yeah, it's a fascinating timeline, and then to know that I'm just not that disconnected from it at the same time. It's always separated by only so many generations to where I still can verbally hear people's stories that there's only kind of 1 degree of separation from. And that I was able to, especially growing up with my grandfather, and kind of the development, manufacturers made stuff that would just sit on their docks, and they would have to wait days for people to come get this stuff. And so Nicky and John Lombard, again, that's why they acquired the 8 horses and 2 carriages to start moving that stuff around the rural parts of Connecticut. One of their earliest jobs too, again, another technology thing, was they would move big blocks of ice. This is pre-refrigeration. So they moved big blocks of ice to restaurants and to, whoever needed to keep meat and stuff frozen. And then by 1923, those 8 horses and 2 carriages became 2 trucks. And from there, it's the reason why they survived, because we have to realize that, by 1923, not shortly after, came the Great Depression. And with the Great Depression also came the FDR's Motor Carrier Act in the 30s. And the trucks became hyper competitive with railroads. There's a lot that was able to keep. It became very necessary and very profitable for Lombard to stay in business while the Depression has gone on. And I have this from an old newsletter. There became a need for wider delivery in the 30s, and that's when the first sort of over the road started happening. And Joseph, so my great uncle, he did the first over the road haul for Lombard, where he drove from Waterbury to Philadelphia in 1932. So for 9 years they were doing. They hadn't really left Connecticut, and then after 9 years, then they started delivering to Philadelphia. That was in 1932, and essentially grew all the way up until 1984. And by 1984, they had 13 terminals in 10 states, from Baltimore, Maryland to Maine.
Wow.
And, so it was big, and they were in the same conversations as, I believe it's not it's either JT or something. Cochrane is another historic carrier that was a horse and carriage company. And it's interesting to know, because pre-1980, how the Motor Carrier Authority worked was, you had the ICC, the Interstate Commerce Commission, and authorities were granted. You were given authority for specific lanes and for specific commodities, and to gain so for Lombard to grow, they had to be given that authority and had to be voted on by other companies. So like I have a reference on how they were able to grow into the Northern Virginia and Baltimore markets, was they were given and allowed the authority through another trucking company that did have the authority to haul specific freight in that area, and they kind of had to give it to them. So you kind of see how the industry was gate kept in that way. Now,
Isn't
Lombard
that kind of
was
wild to think about, right? Like, you can't just get an authority and run anything you want under that authority. You had to get like a meat authority, like a cheese authority. Like, I don't know how specific the authorities were, but just to think that that's how it used to work is kind of wild.
I'll have to send them to you, but I actually have a good friend of ours from Twitter on FreightX. He sent me old authority paperwork that he was able to dig up in archives that show Lombard's authorities, so specific enough to where it would list the highways that they were able to, and the commodities listed. It would be like precious art, gravestones, like that, like a paragraph full of like literally like saying like you had the authority to haul gravestones, like for
and like through certain highways, through certain routes. Like, it's not even just the commodity. I mean, you were like locked into these authorities to the regions of operation too.
Yeah, and how they gate kept it, because my family's company was in a Teamster affiliate, the Teamsters Union, which is still a pretty large, predominant union, way not as powerful as it was pre-1980, due to the Motor Carrier Act of 1980. Deregulation really gutted. It's what ended up gutting my family's company. But pre-1980, it was gate kept. So essentially, if I was to buy a truck right now, if this was 1965, and I bought a truck and I wanted to haul toilet paper from Dallas to Houston, I would have to go and apply for that authority through the DOT. But when you do that, the other motor carriers who are already hauling toilet paper from Dallas and Houston would have to vote on that. And if I just tried to come in and be like, I'm going to haul this freight, the companies would say, well, we're not going to vote for it because we have the capacity to do it, so you're not going to get it. And so that's how it was gate kept. That's why the freight rates also remained as high as they were back then, because these companies, the Teamsters, who were a large union, they were, Lombard was one of the best jobs you can have in the industry. This is, my grandfather, his primary role as owner of Lombard was driver. He drove for 30 plus years. His, drivers at Lombard stayed there for 30 years. They would do their entire career there. And retire with pension. They would have full benefits. They were making salaries, in the 60s, equivalent to six figures today. And they were most of them. They had, I think, 53 over the road guys, the other several hundred, 400 something drivers were primarily like local LTL type freight. So they were local drivers home every night, working kind of a better schedule. And also back then, reading into some of this information about how it was such a different world and how they retained their customers. Like, drivers knew their customers. Drivers were the forward face. Like, I have these old newsletters here, which I can kind of show on the screen for anybody watching.
Drivers were sort of like the sales team back in the day versus now, where the drivers are like not really anywhere near customer conversations. I mean, in certain situations.
In one of these newsletters, there was a driver incentive to where if Lombard hauled freight that wasn't for somebody who was already a customer and they secured that customer, they were given like a fat bonus for like securing new customers. There's reviews in here from shippers talking about how every time they would see a Lombard truck pull into the lot, they knew exactly what they were getting. So it's insane to see. And unfortunately, Motor Carrier Act of 1980 happened. Lombard kind of limped on, and they sold in 1984. and to North Penn transfer out of Lansdale, Pennsylvania. North Penn folded in '91, but I had the honor and privilege of growing up with my grandfather. And so I knew all about this, and it's funny to hear some of his rhetoric. But growing up with that and the Lombard name itself and what it was, I've spoken to several former employees. I had an internship in college where somebody worked in, they worked for the sales department, or they worked as like an admin clerk at Lombard's HQ in Waterbury, and described it as, she's never had a better job since. She said it was the greatest place that she's ever worked. She wouldn't stop talking about the Christmas parties. My grandmother even talks about this too. She always says that the Christmas parties were the best the best thing going. It was literally like a community, a family, and the name still stands. Like, so after Lombard sold, they sold the assets, but they retained the real estate, and that's where some of my family members they have gotten into real estate. My grandfather ended up owning a strip mall in Waterbury, right next to where the HQ used to be, and it was called Lombard Plaza. He sold it, I think, while I was in high school, sometime in the mid 2000s, sometime between 2006, 2009. I'd have to really go back and look. The guy who bought it, the company that bought the plaza, kept the name because of its relevance to the city and to the city's history for that reason. And so there's the name is still up there. There's old trucking Facebook pages that I'm on where people will post pictures of old Lombard trucks and trailers and drivers who would go on and talk about it. So it's in.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty wild, man, to see how far the name goes back, how much your family's kind of done in trucking. I mean, let's kind of get into how did you become a truck driver, right? Because, okay, your family was doing it, you have a long history of doing it, but how did you end up behind the wheel of a truck? Because I feel like that's a little bit something that's not as straightforward, right? You start out in a warehouse. How do you go from warehouse to truck driver?
Yeah, and it's funny to think, because growing up, my grandfather always said, don't get into it. The government, these are his quotes. And his quotes, and it's funny to hear his quotes because these are conversations that are happening on TikTok and Twitter and LinkedIn today, where these are his like almost exact words, where he said the government got involved, they ruined everything. They let they've let in they let anybody haul freight now. That was his thing. They let anybody do this. Bottom feeders, which is union rhetoric, like the term scab and all that stuff. Like, they've let in bottom feeders. They're paid like garbage. XYZ, and those are his words. He's like, you shouldn't do it. It's way different. It's not what it was in my day. But dude, this guy was my hero. Like I said, like growing up, he was always him and my father, my heroes. So I've kind of had that upbringing. My grandfather, truck driver. My dad, he didn't finish high school. He's worked in manufacturing his whole life. He owns his own business. He does centerless grinding, which is like a subsect of manufacturing. So manufacturers will send metal products to my dad to grind down, very similar to CNC machinist work. But so, I come from a blue collar background in general. And I grew up, my dad likes Harleys. He works in a freaking metal shop. My grandfather's a truck driver. So it's that's the way my brain's kind of wired. And I always kind of felt that growing up. And, there's a reason why I joined the Marines and not the Air Force in another way, not to downplay anybody who's in the Air Force, if anybody's listening. So I've always kind of had that kind of grit mentality. But I was told at a very young age and during high school, this is the era of, you got to go to college, you got to do this. This is how you get ahead. You were made for more.
There was a huge shift, from the blue collar to sort of education route. I would say obviously around the time where you were going to go to school, and even the time I was going to school, right? Like, blue collar was looked down on, like working with your hands was looked down on. High schools in Canada didn't even really offer like much. I mean, like, I got into drain laying, for example. I didn't know being a drain layer was a job. Like, I think the schools really steered away from pushing kids and educating them on the blue collar jobs. And it was like, if you don't go to university, you don't go to college, you're not gonna, do anything with your life. And I think it's a weird shift, right? Because back in the day, blue collar was kind of the cool jobs, and now it's sort of like you're not cool if you do them.
Yeah, it's kind of coming full circle in so many ways. And I spent a lot of time like pretty distraught about it, because I got out of the Marines and I wrestled with that for a while. Maybe I should have seen what another 4 years looked like. I've wrestled with that idea, because again, going from, being in the military, and veterans struggle with this. Like, it's hard to find purpose after you've had, again, we were in Afghanistan for so many years. I've deployed to Afghanistan. Like when you have a purpose, when you have a community, a mission, this is why I'm so big now on fitness and community. When you have when you're with, your brothers every day and you have a purpose, you have a mission, it kind of drives you. And so getting out, it just kicked the can down the road from high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do after high school because I've been essentially gaslit about how, going after kind of blue collar work isn't good for you, or it's not going to get you ahead.
Yeah.
So I do go to college. I get a business degree. I come out of college. I'm not finding work. I get a job. I work at Enterprise Rent-A-Car for like a year and a half. It's like one of the most miserable experiences you can. Half your customers just got in an accident. The other half are drug dealers. So it's like it's a freaking tough. It was a tough thing. Fortunately enough, and then a little beacon open. I was in a fraternity in college. An alumni posted on a Facebook page that the company he was working for was hiring. It's an operations oriented job. It's essentially, it was like it was an ops oriented job that trains guys to become ops managers for a wholesaler up in New England. And so I was like, okay. I checked out the company. I was like, dude, I'm interested in this. And so it was a plumbing and heating wholesaler up in the Northeast called FW Web. And I got in there, and getting in there was kind of like a little bit more my speed because it was a warehouse and a store. So the people I was engaging with every day are plumbers, HVAC guys. I was truck drivers. Like I was loading, unloading trucks. Like we got orders. I would have to call LTL carriers to set up all this stuff. I was putting away a lot of inventory. I was doing a lot of inventory control, running some reports.
I mean, like every day was different. It wasn't like going to listen to how this guy crashed a rental car, how this guy got arrested, or how this guy left some crystal meth in your backseat.
Exactly. Like I was more around my speed. And then I started turning my fitness around in 2018 while I was at that warehouse. In 2019, I was offered a promotion to run a store and warehouse in North Jersey. I ended up turning it down because I thought I should have been paid more for what the role was calling for. And they wanted me to move 5 weeks before my wedding. And so I passed on it. But if I didn't lock in 2018 and I was still kind of at my worst physical shape, I might have taken that promotion because I didn't think anything good like that. Something was given to me. When it comes to being in the military, promotions and raises are only given based off of merit and time and service. Like there is no negotiating salary. So when it comes to veterans don't ask for raises. Veterans don't they're not going to negotiate for it because it's like there's an authority, like somebody is going to give you that more money in a lot of ways. And people may agree or disagree with it. And I think veterans learn that it's part of learning the civilian world. Civilian world's a lot different. And so for the first time I negotiated salary, I stood up for myself and I turned it down. And coming back from our honeymoon, my wife and I were just talking. She was kind of ready to leave the state. She had never lived outside of Connecticut. At that point, I just had this newfound inspiration. I've called myself Lombardtrucking on the internet for years. I'm in the freight and logistics space. If we're going to move, I'm going to do this. Because if I don't do it now, if I didn't get my CDL then I would have never done it, and always look back like, man, I wish I knew what it would have been like to be a driver. I wish I knew. Like I knew it was time to
I know, honestly, man, getting fired or like having options to move on or move up, and like once like it happens to you, it usually feels bad, but it usually pushes you into the thing you're supposed to do. Or like I mean, I've never left like a job and felt like I've done worse after that. And it's always gotten better. It like pushes you out of your comfort zone and pushes you to make the changes you've always kind of wanted to make. But like comfort's a killer, right? Like comfort's the huge killer. You show up Monday to Friday, you put in your hours, and unless something drastic happens, most people don't really get out of that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is tough to get out. It's once you're in that comfort zone circle, it gets you out of that moving. And that's why I always, tell people if they have an opportunity to move or to get out of their hometown, they should do it, because what it does to your brain, again, it's just like going into
man. I moved from Canada to Serbia. I think that was like one of the most wild. I mean, I came here for a vacation and then I just kind of stayed. So it wasn't like super planned out. But that like adrenaline rush and that feeling of like everything being new. I mean, it's a really, really cool experience.
It totally rewires your brain. I mean, that's what happens. People do that in Austin. Like people will come to Austin it's kind of happened to us. Like my wife came to a bachelorette party here once, loved it. And I had never been here. I'd been to Dallas like once. And it's like we picked that as our spot. People come here on a bachelor party or for vacation. They hang out for a week, and then they're like, there's so many
Yeah, it
stories
just
that you
sucks
hear
you
like
in.
that.
Yeah.
It kind
Okay,
of
so you
brings you
move
in.
out, man. You grab the CDL, and then what? You just hit OTR hard.
Yeah, I mean that was it off the rip. It was like I'm going to come here, and I'm going to come here, follow my family's lineage. Again, I've LARPed as Lombardtrucking on the internet for years. So it was like, all right, let's do this. Yeah, I start, first company I work for, I'm working for Pam Transport. Get in some of my time with them. I met a guy while I was driving for them, who drove for a very small carrier outside of Bentonville, Northwest Arkansas, R&R Solutions. And I got to hype them up because I drove for them as a company guy. They let me lease on when I bought my truck. They're an amazing outfit. They're like the carrier. And again, it's so hard to find them because, you have to basically meet a driver there because you're not going to see their advertisements unless you live in Arkansas. But they're fantastic. Little less than 30 trucks. They're a 3PL. They do a whole lot of good stuff. They let me lease on to their authority when I had bought my truck. And, but yeah, all the while I was over the road, I knew that. So I had started this weight loss journey in 2018. All that stuff I've been doing, Peloton, CrossFit, that's going away. I read the David Goggins book, when I'm with my trainer going over the road. A key twists in my brain that was just like, I need to be an outlier. I can't, this isn't about just me anymore. Like I should be leading by example. And that's what I did. And because my first entry into driving was me reading the Goggins book and then learning the ELD and learning kind of like I went into it knowing that, as opposed to if I had read the Goggins book, after I went with my trainer. So I knew, because the Goggins book, it breaks down really well how to manage, how you should be managing your time and how you're wasting your time in a lot of ways and how a lot of people are screwing it. And so I used that Goggins mentality with how you had to run via ELD. And so I knew as soon as that yellow tab was pulled, it's game time. And I would strategize it. Okay, I can only take 10 hours. I'm going to go to sleep now, sleep 7 hours, wake up, run 3 miles, then drive. Or it's like, I'm going to park, run 3-4 miles, shower, cook dinner, go to sleep, still try to get 7-8 hours.
Yeah, it's pretty scripted when you're running OTR and you're not running into massive problems. And I mean, you kind of know how the ELD is going to work, even if you get stuck at a shipper or receiver. I mean, you already kind of know how your days are going to go for the most part. And I think it's kind of like a funny thing, right? Because most people will say, not even just in trucking, but just in fitness in general, they say, oh, I don't have time. And I think it's kind of corny and stuff. People are like, oh, well, if you want to do something, you'll make the time. And it's true. But I kind of watched the funniest YouTube video the other day, a quick short where the guy's like, oh, his friend tells him, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to look too big, And this guy's like, man, I've been in the gym for 7 years. I'm doing absolutely everything perfectly. I'm not too big. That's just an excuse. And you're not just going to fumble into the gym, do 40 minutes of nonsense and become too big, right? So it's just kind of the grand scheme of the excuses and lengths people go to convince themselves that health is not a priority or not possible. And then you're sitting here, if you read the book, if you look at your day, there's always going to be 30, 40 minutes that you could find for fitness if you really wanted to.
100%.
I mean, being a truck driver, a lot of people always try to make that thing, it's a tough job, it's tough hours. And that, not to discredit any truck drivers, obviously that's true. But take us through you being a truck driver. I mean, what weight did you start at and what weight did you finish at in your driving career? Because obviously I know you finished, I think, truck driving right at near the end of that transformation, something like that, right?
Yeah, essentially. So by the time I got over the road, because I had lost weight leading into our wedding. I had, at my heaviest in 2018, I was, almost 280 pounds. The highest number I saw on a scale was 278. Wow. So, I mean, you give or take, plus or minus 5 pounds at a given weekend. And, and that could have been a Tuesday or something. So it's if I weighed myself over the weekend after all the pizza and beer, it's I could have been 285, so it's always give or take what you can weigh. And I'd say by the time I got over the road, and what's crazy is because my weight kind of fluxed a little bit over the road because it's not about perfection. It's about consistency. So by the time I got out there, I was probably still 225. and I'm 5'11" for reference, and so I was still 225 on that side. And again, running 0 miles, like where running like, and when I started running, right as I was getting ready to go over the road, like running 2 miles hurt. It was very, very painful. It wasn't fun. It wasn't enjoyable. It hurt my shoulders even. So it's like getting out there at between 220, 225. Crazy enough, and this is just from not knowing macros and diet. I was very radical with the food I was eating, where I had to be at a certain calorie number. And by February, I got down to like 188. And within those first like 6 months over the road, I got down to 188. But if you look at a picture of when I weighed 188, and right now I'm 180, and if you looked at both those pictures, you'd be like, there's no way. And that's what's funny about weight. So it's like I got down, and then I kind of teetered back up. I've gotten back up over 200, but by the time I came off the road, I was back down to 190. So really, I lost, like, while being over the road, I was able to lose and keep off 30, 35 pounds in that time, and along the way run those 5 marathons. So in total,
I want to touch on that for like a second, right? Because I just sat down with a friend of mine. So I went for the past year on a super big health journey with the gym. Like, not a lot of cardio, no running, no biking, none of that stuff. Mostly just weight training, and that's it. And I mean, things were cool, the results were cool, this and that. It was a lot of work, it was tough. But I sat down with a friend of mine, so I didn't know this. He silently went through like a transformation without saying a word to anybody. And it's the type of friend that I see like once every 6 months type of deal. Like, we talk every day, but we just don't see each other much. I sit down at a table with this guy. He's like, yeah, I dropped 15% body fat. And all he did was like hire a nutritionist and change his diet. Like, this guy did not go to the gym. He did not change any other habits in his life other than his diet. And I think that's like a strong thing to mention to the logistics community, right? Like, if you're a truck driver, you don't have to get out there necessarily and start lifting weights and start running and start moving more. You can literally change like your entire health trajectory just with the diet. And I mean, obviously there's going to be pushback, like, oh, it's tough for us to get these healthy options. But there's another guy that can't remember his first name. It's like Garrett Steenblick. That guy, he lost like a lot of weight, man, as an OTR truck driver. And he always said, like, you got to stock up, man. You got to fill up the fridge. I mean, he found a way to get the diet in check, right?
Yeah, and I'm totally on board. I understand the food options out there. There's a way to navigate. Again, like, I grocery shopped at Walmart once a week. You might not be able to park overnight at every Walmart, but a tractor trailer can pull in there. I know this when driving for Pam. I pulled Walmarts out of 2 DCs in Indiana and down in New Braunfels. So like, no matter what, you can pull into a Walmart. Like, you can pull in, it's easy in, easy out. There's truck entrance and exit. And so you can grocery shop, and I've done it on a 30-minute break. I've done it on a 34. It's very doable if you're route planning, and that's the thing.
I love having these conversations with ex-truck drivers, right? Because I obviously will never pretend that I understand that job. I mean, I've never been a truck driver. I know a lot about the industry. I've been on the carrier side of things. I'm on the broker side of things. But I'll never be the guy that's like, oh yeah, you could just park at a Walmart and it's easy. Like, I don't know what truck drivers go through. But it's nice to have these conversations with ex-truck drivers who are like, guys, listen, like, I've done it. I've been to the Walmarts. I've cooked my own food. I mean, everything is a choice in life. And I like when I hear it from, the ex-drivers.
Yeah, it does come down to choices. It's very important. And if it's like, man, I don't know what to buy at Walmart, and it's just like, but if you are somebody who's just starting out, and as you said, it does come down to diet. The options out there aren't very good. I think Love's is probably top of the list on where you can really gamify what you can eat. And this is what's great about the Off Shift app, which we'll kind of mention in a minute once we get kind of through the race. But when you there's a guy, he's a professor in North Carolina, I believe. He did what's called the Twinkie diet, and this proves that like your options, and you can YouTube it. If you YouTube the Twinkie diet, you can see it. He ate for. Is it
the guy that lost weight just eating Twinkies?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. He ate Twinkies and like Cheetos and junk food and a little bit of fruit for like vitamins, but he only ate 1,800 calories a day, and he did it for several months. He not only lost 30 pounds doing it, but he his blood sugar went down, his cholesterol went down, his blood pressure, like
I mean,
all
I
of
don't
his like,
recommend any of that to anybody, but the principle of keeping your calorie deficit, the principle of, it's not as complicated as, like, that's the thing, right? It's like Wall Street. You go back to Wall Street. They want you to think what they do is very complicated, and they make it sound very complicated. And all the YouTube videos and TikToks are like, health is this big, scary, like, tough thing, and you got to eat exactly these like 17 things or you're gonna die. And I mean, it's like, man, you just cook yourself some meat, have, like, it's just like you said, it's the calorie intake. It's what you're putting in your body, like the volume of stuff you're putting in your body, not necessarily the actual items you're eating, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's definitely not sustainable. You don't want to do that diet.
Yeah,
But
you
if
don't want
you
to
have no other option, if you just keep yourself at a certain number, you don't overdo it, like technically, like, you're not going to lose. And that's where people get caught up. They'll be like, "Oh man, I was really good. I was really good for 2 weeks, and then I ended up, binge eating one of those days." And it's like, that doesn't matter. Then you just
Yeah.
dial back the next day. Like it's
I think it's
weight
the
loss
all
is,
or nothing, right? Like, weight loss has to be that lifestyle. It's not like a thing you do for a few months or a few weeks or a few days. It's sort of something that you just have to incorporate into your daily life. And like you said, if you go like 10 days in a row doing good and you eat some pizza and stuff, like, that's fine. That's like, we're humans. You got to eat that food sometimes.
I've never given up Terry Black's barbecue. I've never given up pizza. I've never given up ice cream. The only thing I gave up, which is purely out of for kind of athletics and just, and yeah, a little bit health wise once you kind of learn more about it. But I haven't drank since Matt's in 2024, so it's like it'll be 2 years in March. And again, you don't even need to do that. Like, I know plenty of Ironman and people who enjoy beer and what
Oh, I
have you.
think
But
I
it's like,
watched like the most shorts, like YouTube shorts of people finishing these Ironmans and just getting like patio beers. Like, beer after an Ironman seems to be like this like thing that people do. Like,
yeah, it's like you don't need to get, yeah, that's all these cyclists do. All the cyclists in Austin, they all link up at a brewery. They go for a freaking ride, and then they come back and guzzle beers. But the next day they're not like, "Oh my God, I sucked. I drank after this bike ride. Now I'm gonna just never ride a bike again." It's like, it doesn't happen at your job. It's like nobody's perfect at their job. You make one mistake, you don't just go, "Sorry, man, I messed up. I'm gonna quit. So my bad." Like, nope, nobody does that at their job. It's, "Hey, I messed
yeah.
up." And then it's like, okay, let's fix it. Let's learn from your mistakes, and you move on. That's all you do. It's all applicable to life.
Well, we got 18 minutes roughly to wrap up this show, man. I want to get into the meat and potatoes with you. Let's talk Serbia. How does being an OTR truck driver bring you to running an Ironman in Serbia? Take us a little bit through that journey.
For sure. I mean, so coming off the road was I don't want to use the word traumatic, but obviously it came with its, because running and endurance is what equipped me for the transition. So, I mean, long story short, I got back into in May of 2023. I went back out all summer. I had hemorrhaged money for a month, grinded all summer. I was basically driving to just maintain a job. But along the way, I was offered 2 jobs. One was to coach at 2 gyms here in Austin. And then I was also offered a job to be a recruiter, like a driver recruiter. And when I'm having conversations like that with my family, with my wife, it's like, well, why don't you give it a shot? And if anything else, like, you can always drive, like, you can just go back driving. And I was in a position then, and if you think about the market in 2023, where if I did park, because it was basically about 2 years ago, like just maybe 2 years and a month ago is when I came off the road. By coming off then, I had an opportunity to break even and not have to possibly, because essentially I was sort of on the verge of bankruptcy and folding it up.
No,
But I
I
knew
mean,
if I got out,
man, literally everybody in trucking at that time, and even unfortunately through this period, like, that is when everything started going. So that's the time to exit if you were ever thinking about it.
yeah, and it's like I could have stuck with it and prayed that that everything stayed good, and maybe I can break even a year from now. But again, I didn't get into business to have a job, and where I knew I could go back to being a company driver, it's like I was offered 2 jobs, like two different, and one of them is in fitness and one of them still is in the industry. So it's like, as any participant in the labor force, if you're offered a job and it looks good, and it's like, well, then why not try it out, especially because it leaves me with 2 of my passions, where I'm still in the industry and still in fitness, and I have these 3 years of over the road experience. So I get off 3 days after I park my truck. I go to coach's training. But and then I work as a recruiter all of 2024. So I stopped recruiting after about 6 months because I became a head coach at 2 studios in Austin. So all of 2024, I was full-time in fitness, but I was still very tapped into the industry because I still had the podcast I was doing, something I started over the road. I had been going to events. I was invited to speak at Broker Carrier Summit in 2024 in spring in Kansas City, and going to that Broker Carrier Summit just totally, like, another piece of my brain opened up to where it's just like, okay, I'm preaching this message about driver health. I need to double down on myself on what I'm doing. And if I'm going to get people to listen what I have to say about this stuff, and to really get this mission and message out there, I need to double down on what I'm doing. So it's like, it's one thing that I ran 5 marathons as a trucker, but what was I going to do after? Because it's very, with the driving side, like when you get out from behind the wheel, you still got to earn that trust from other drivers for them to kind of value, your opinion and stuff. And I get it, because I'm not out there, with the road dogs getting after it like I used to. So I knew I had to double down on who I was and who Mike Lombard was to do this. And so at Broker Carrier Summit, that's when I had the conversation with Green Screens. It popped in my head. It's like, if I'm going to be somebody, then I need to do incredibly difficult things. And so I knew that, like, I have a swimming background growing up. So it's like, I'm almost disrespecting, basically, and I was a water survival instructor in the Marines. I'm disrespecting all this experience and my, good talent in the water by not getting into triathlon, where I'm not a cyclist at all. And so I knew that that's the direction I needed to go. I got to jump into triathlon, and I needed to do it. It needed to happen. It needed to be something worth noting. And so that's why I went from, I did one triathlon Memorial Day weekend. I get, Green Screens on board to sponsor. I've got, I'm talking to Mark Monera. I'm talking to Jeremy Raymer. We're having conversations all throughout this. Jeremy starts Project 61 along the way. There's all this little manifesting going on. I do a triathlon in May. I do another small one at the end of summer. I do a half Ironman in Waco in 5 months from my first one. A month later, I go to Ironman Florida. So I go from 0 to Ironman in 6
to 100
months.
real quick.
A statement. 6 months later, I did Ironman Texas, another full distance. But along the way, again, we had started talking, we had started talking and having, our friendship started to develop about you locking in. And the idea of Serbia came about because it's just like, we live in this freight industry where there's so much connected to, like, there's so much in freight connected to Serbia over there. You're somebody who has engaged in my mess, me and Nick Klingensmith's message and mission and what we're trying to do. You're on board, and it's like, what better way to prove myself right? What better way to show who I am as a person, to say, well, I'm going to go over there and do some hard stuff with you. And, like, it makes perfect sense. Like, there's this connection across oceans between the industries. And I've said it before, people don't love the fact that there is so much, labor that works overseas, but you're not going to put the lid back on Pandora's box. And then, like, we're never going to go backwards in that, especially.
No, that's a good way to describe it.
So it's either let's work with probably the best possible options with some of the smartest and most patriotic people who we can, or don't, and then just it's worse. And then there's going to be no dispatchers and nobody there when a truck breaks down at 3 a.m. But that's a whole different conversation. But what better way to prove who I am? And I tell drivers all the time, I say, if you sign up for a marathon, I'll not only pay for them to do it, I'll go out and do it with them. I tell people that quite often, and I'm waiting for somebody to finally follow through with that.
No, I mean, I think
it'll happen,
for me,
because it happened here.
It kind of went like this, right? So I was always, like, athletic, like, throughout high school and throughout my schooling, and then I got into, like, a physical labor job, so my health was always, like, somewhat okay. Obviously my diet wasn't great and stuff, but I was always, like, outside 6 days a week doing something hard, digging holes 10 hours a day. So, like, your body is obviously going to be okay when you're working like that. And then I got into logistics, and, like, 4 years goes by, and I realized, like, it just kind of hit me one day. I was like, man, I'm in the worst possible shape of my entire life. Like, I have never been this unhealthy and incapable of, like, walking small distances. And, like, it didn't get, like, it didn't balloon to 300 pounds or anything. Like, I never looked crazy fat or anything, but it was just, like, the incapable, like, just walking, like, daily activities. I couldn't play soccer anymore. I couldn't play basketball with my friends. I couldn't go on a hike. I couldn't really do any of the things that I actually loved doing. And trucking was like one of the things where it just stole. So like I was so interested in this industry that it was like a 6-7 days a week sort of thing, where if I wasn't in the office dispatching, I was at home with social media, starting up the LinkedIn, talking to like everyone I can, and just trying to learn as much as I can. So it sort of like stole my life for 2-3 years. And then it hit me one day. I was like, man, this sucks. And like part of the reason it hit me is because I started following you and Nick somehow. And that was just, again, through social media. And it was like every single day, man, like you and Nick, like going for a run, going for a bike, going for a run, going for a swim. And it's like, man, like if these two guys are like able to do this, and it's just in my face that you guys were like so militant with the daily posting that it's like I couldn't even get away from you guys. And it hit me, man. Like November 1st of last year, I had a gym like literally across the street from my house, 24-hour gym. So I kind of found my stride with like going after work, which is like 1 a.m., which is kind of ridiculous. But I mean, that's the outsourced lifestyle, right? I mean, I worked till midnight 1, hit the gym until 3. And this sort of just went on for like 6-7 months. I started getting really healthy. But again, my cardio was terrible. I still couldn't run. I couldn't do anything. I just looked better and I was much stronger. And then you and Nick were like, let's get into this whole like Ironman thing. And it hit me. I was like, that was like the exact thing that I needed in my life to take everything to the next step. Now I play every weekend soccer. I can go run for an hour. I can do all the things. Like I got my life in order with you guys saying that's like the infectious part of it. Because you guys told me, listen, if we're going to do this Ironman, we're going to come out there with you. We're going to like come do this with you. And that was the thing where I almost didn't believe like at all that either one of you guys would ever show up here. And then you did show up here, and it just made, everything much easier because I knew that I had you guys to rely on, and I knew that I wasn't in this sort of thing alone. And I think, like you said, that sense of community in fitness really does help on the days where you don't want to do stuff. Other people are doing it and they want you to do it, and they're going to push and help you to do it, right?
Everything you said is exactly why I went over there and did it, because to show to really at length, because again, I didn't like traveling does take a lot out of you. And so I've never traveled for a race like that. Ironman Florida, we drove, it was laid back, easy, no problem. Like I didn't even really drive, we rented a minivan. Like I had days to decompress. And again, it's only from Texas to Florida. Crossing an ocean is totally different, but that was the whole reason to go over there is another calling card. So it's like I refer to them as calling cards. So if I'm ever called out, like I was called out on Sirius XM radio the other day, somebody was under the assumption that I am some sort of life coach. I charge for coaching or something. And he actually called in to, I'm on an XM show every Wednesday. And he was, because I was basically, preaching the message about health and fitness and everything and talking about my testimony. And this guy had called in. He's like, nobody needs what you're saying or what you're selling. You're trying to make a quick buck. And I'm not selling anything. I don't sell anything. I don't charge. And I never will, because I don't have the mental bandwidth to go through that. But and so what I'm trying to do is build this resume of saying, no, I am like, this is how far I'm willing to go to support and to support this message. Like my philosophy, this mission is I will cross an ocean to go meet up with somebody who is listening to what I have to say, who has taken something away. I'm going to race with them. I'm going to go do this race. I'll do that for anybody. Could be a driver, could be a broker in this country. That's how much my stake is in it, is I will go that distance. I'll not only go the distance in running or an Ironman, but I'll go the distance traveling far and wide to prove to anybody that I got your back. That's what
crazy.
Like,
and the amount of people that your flight, like you getting on that airplane, changed so many people's lives, right? Because like, first of all, there was me, then there's my editor, then there's like 3 of my friends, then there's like random guys that know me in Serbia, started following you on Instagram. And it's like the whole like community shifted when you agreed to come out here and I started doing this stuff. Cause like it's an infection, right? Like the people around you see you, and either one of two things happens. Either they start getting jealous of you and mad because you're doing the things that they wish they could do, or like that, they start getting like envious of their own life and start getting mad at you because they want to get healthier, but they don't want to put in the effort. Or the second thing happens where they start putting in the effort and they ask you for advice and you help people out. And that's the thing, like it's all for free. Like the amount of conversations I've had with people of how to start in the gym. I tell them all the time, I'll come to the gym, I'll show you my 3-4 day routine. It works for me. It works for most people. Like I will help anybody get into fitness because you guys helped me, because that's just how that's supposed to work. This isn't something we're supposed to make money on. This is something where we just want to help people out, especially truck drivers, especially in logistics, because this is such an industry, such a sedentary industry. And like, I mean, that's the whole Project 61 thing. And I didn't even realize the name is the problem in the industry.
Exactly. And just to kind of like bury home that point, what you just said about how it's like going over there and traveling made a change. That's the legacy that I'm bringing in the 21st century. Is Lombard Trucking for almost, for over 3 generations had the backs of drivers in every sort of way, with pay, with lifestyle, with everything. They had the backs. It's up to me to do the exact same thing because I carry that name. And so it's on me to, and I need to prove that. I need to prove how I have the industry's back. And it's showed that I will go that length the same way my grandfather and his family and our whole family had drivers' backs, had the industry's back and the industry's best interest at heart. I have it in the same exact, and that's why I went over there. And with Project 61, I mean, it's fantastic to see it because I mean, I don't take credit at all for Project 61 because it's Jeremy and Mark's. It's Jeremy and then also Mark's kind of like now that the Project 61 is bought off shift, it's definitely them, because I don't have the dollars or anything that have done it. And I didn't have the idea of Project 61. I did kind of had what Jeremy started is definitely something that was in the back of my mind. Is like, this is where it's going. But I feel like the conversations over the past several years of me, Mark, and Jeremy all meeting definitely are part of what like our how we communicated, definitely put into the universe and out there in the world that Project 61 was going to come no matter what. And I'm glad and I'm glad Jeremy felt it in his heart to do it. Yeah, naming it, it's the average life expectancy of a driver. So it removes 16 years off. Average life expectancy of an American is, 77. Life expectancy 61, so it removes 16 years off life. And now where it's headed, I mean, the OffShift app, for anybody who doesn't know, and for anybody out there, it's a totally free health app that you can download on the App Store right now that gives you almost everything I post content about. Healthier, better for you options at fast food places, so you can get your macros. It gives you a daily workout that's like 15 minutes that you could do in your truck. Like, that is just simple stuff. Like that is good for your body. That will add years back onto your life. We have a 61-day step challenge that starts November 1st. So, man, you could start a whole team over there in Serbia. You can get, any of your friends in the US. You guys can make teams on this app to get this step contest going because it's about taking that next step. Like, if we could solve this issue tomorrow, it would have already been solved. But all we can do is take the next step forward, and Project 61 developing and coming on board. Again, I know that Jeremy's looking for sponsors of the 61-day step challenge. So if you're on LinkedIn watching this, definitely reach out to myself or Jeremy. We'd love to put you in touch and get you involved. And that's kind of where this is going. What I'm hoping is, because I traveled the distance to go to Belgrade and compete, is like future thinking is what I would love to do is try to secure, because there's a lot of people who run these races, Ironman, marathons, charity 5Ks, whatever. Like, people do fitness events for charity. That happens a lot. You see, I'm doing the Chicago Marathon, raising money for, Nick Klingensmith. He competes. He does the stuff for the, breast cancer awareness. So in the same way, I want to try to get bib and race entries for, the world majors, for, either Ironman events and marathons or half marathons, 5Ks, whatever it might be.
Support of trucking entries and support of truck drivers' health. Yeah.
And we get people from in and out, really, it could be both in and outside the industry, because really the outside of the industry needs to hear this message and mission too, because no big trucks don't exist. So it's about getting everybody in on it. And so if the smallest person, if somebody who works in finance in Chicago raises $500 for Project 61, that's more and more eyes and ears on what it is and what the mission is. And it just keeps bringing the conversation higher. And that's where I can hope to see it go. Again, the diet nutrition thing is I think the first step. Like, you can't go from 0 to Ironman in 6 months, and not everybody needs to run a marathon. But what's the information on the OffShift app? Just those healthy little, switching a diet soda, instead of eating the whole thing, eat it in half. Instead of getting this at McDonald's, get this. Those little things right there are going to give you more life, more energy to make better decisions than what you're doing. And it's because it's exactly how I started losing weight. Started with one habit, consistently done over time, and then I added a habit, consistently done over time, and then I added this, became consistent. So it's really like my journey to Ironman took 6 years. it took 6.5 years or so to get there, to go from my heaviest to being an Ironman. So it's like, yeah, I went from 0 triathlons to Ironman in 6 months, but it took me 6 years to even have the confidence or belief that I could do it. In that journey from being consistently good over time.
I'll touch on that same topic, man. I mean, I got into this Ironman thing not because I think anybody in their right mind should even attempt to do half an Ironman. It's just an unnecessary thing. And if people do attempt it, that's amazing. That's an amazing thing that now I'm again training for. I mean, I got on the line. I failed my first race in the swim portion, which is completely fine, because without that race, I would have never started cardio. And I'm at the point where, like, I ride the indoor bike, I go on runs. Like, there's so much benefit to failing that race in my life. And I know I'll get it done next year. But I'm only doing this Ironman stuff with you guys just to prove that it's possible, right? Like, I don't expect anybody to take this message to go from truck driver to running half Ironman. Like, that's just not in the realm of expectations. My whole reason of doing this race is just to show people I went from, being very out of shape to doing this. It's very possible. You can walk 20 minutes a day. Like, I don't expect a single person to attempt to start doing endurance races and runs and marathons and all this kind of stuff. That's just for me to finish, to prove to myself that I can do it, and to show it to everybody else that it's possible. And, the little changes are just as beneficial as training for something as insane as this type of a race.
That's always what it's been about. It's the only reason I ran marathons was as a trucker, is to say, you don't need to.
You can.
That's
you
it.
don't need to, but you can. All right, man. As we wrap up the show, we got about 5 minutes left. I want to talk to you about Serbia, the nation that most of North America doesn't even know exists. Most of my life in Canada was explaining to people that it's right next to Croatia, because for some reason everyone knows where Croatia is. But Serbia seems to be a little bit hidden in the North American realm. What were your initial thoughts on the country as far as you're kind of like getting off the airplane, getting into the city? I mean, the vibe of the city. I mean, how was it for you?
I mean, just knowing, so especially knowing you and knowing individuals, one of my best friends, who I pronounce his name wrong, Euros, he's from Montenegro, and, meeting so many people over the past few years from the region, like I've said it kind of like jokingly, but really there's truth to it, that the Balkans are like the Midwest of Europe. And I actually recently, because of some of my recent Instagram posts, it's really funny how people in the Balkans do, there's always been feuding going on. And it reminds me of back home. People in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut argue about who has the best pizza. And I will swear by Connecticut, but really at the end of the day, they're all within a 2-hour drive and kind of all the same. It just kind of like over in the Balkans, like everybody's within like a very close distance of each other. And
it's like so similar, but there's so much beef going on.
Yeah, it's so similar, but there's this beef, like people from New York, freaking New Jersey, like clash, and then Connecticut, New York, freaking clash. So it's kind of funny in that way. But what a slept on place, like, and just getting there, like, number one, the name of their airport, Nikola Tesla Airport. Like, you have a national hero that your airport's named after. It's not named after some sort of, it's not like Dulles Airport and Dulles, which is named after the head of the CIA. It's named after one of your national heroes, which I think is awesome. And like the city itself, I mean,
to be kind of fair to America, you guys have like 50 or like 70 or 80 airports. We have like one.
Yeah,
just to give some perspective to the naming schemes here. Like.
Very, very true. But yeah, coming into it, I mean, just such a beautiful place. I mean, and by all means, people have been living in that area since 7000 BC. It's one of the oldest inhabited places in Europe. What it is, and I mean, and I follow so many meme pages. Like, every cab driver we had is probably like the smartest guy in the world. Like, they have just this.
I was blown away. I won't even lie. As a Canadian who was born and raised in Canada, our school system absolutely failed. It's like the average person I meet on the streets in Serbia, like most of Europe, but like, I mean, I live here. I meet a lot of people here. Like, just the average citizen knows so many things. It's like a little bit embarrassing, the school system differences between the countries.
Yeah, and what's really awesome about it is, like, because Serbia's got its problems. You got the issues with the president; he's kind of a dork.
And it's politics everywhere, man.
Like, it's everywhere, and we know this. It's in every country. There's corruption and stuff like that. But the Serbian people, like all of them, they're so patriotic. They care about their identity. Their identity has carried them through Like it's how they've been able to, like, they sustained Ottoman rule all the way through
Yeah, like
communism
such a
because they,
strong people, man. They really like stick together, and they really have like a big community vibe out here.
yeah, there's a Texas like type energy that in Serbia that's like unreal. And there was a military parade that weekend while we were there, and they, instead of politicizing it, like, people still went because they care about their country, care about it regardless of their feelings of the president. They still care about that stuff. They care about their traditions. And then even being able
Yeah.
to have the opportunity to travel up to Novi Sad and the tour guide and kind of hearing her speak about events and her speak about 1999 NATO what they refer to as NATO aggression, kind of hearing the other side of it. Because what's crazy is nobody in the like, none of my friends had any clue about 1999 at all. So it's like it just goes to
Yeah, it's
show
kind of
like how,
interesting to see how much like was done. Like, I mean, NATO literally bombed Serbia, and it's just like kind of one of those funny things where like Americans don't know that this country exists, but they literally had a huge hand in bombing it. Like, I mean, it just kind of, the irony sort of writes itself there. Like, that was 25 years ago, 27 years ago. We're not talking about like 50, 80, 100 years ago here.
yeah, it's like recent history, like a U.S.
Yeah.
president that's still alive, sort of thing. So it's like the spirit of the people over there is good. And again, what's crazy is, like, yeah, there's a lot of freight and logistics jobs that are overseas. And again, we're not going to put, going to visit HMD Trucking, the manager over there, he's a freaking, he's just like anybody. He's just like any other like guy I've met at a freight conference at Broker Carrier Summit. Like, he's the similarities in just like the work ethics. We're not going to put.
Oh yeah,
that
no,
lid
like
back
I've
on
said it.
Pandora's
I'll
box.
say it. I'll stand on this. Like, I'll die on this. So like, Serbia's outsource in the American logistics scene is like in the top tier of most operations. I mean, you walk through the office, you saw it yourself. It's just another office. It's just normal people doing a normal job. And I think we hold a really high standard out here as far as the quality goes. Sure, we may not be the cheapest option, but normally when you go with the cheapest option, I mean, you get burned anyways. So I'd rather take the quality that Serbia consistently has in the outsource game over some of the other options out there.
Yeah, and I mean, for the way the economy is now, with how it is, I mean, the companies, because the companies are all based in the U.S. where these people work, so it is kind of sort of a hybrid model and how it works. But the jobs that are over in Serbia at this point, again, once a standard becomes the standard and costs become due, the idea of getting those jobs to come back into the U.S., like either dispatching, overnight dispatch, all those jobs, it's a hard sell, because just like we have going on with the retention issue with drivers, it's the same issue on that back end admin side, which is why they're trying to rapidly automate dispatch. They're trying to rapidly automate at least, because again, I don't love it. Do I want
I don't
good
love
jobs for America?
the automation yet, man. I'm not listening to like the conversations. Like, I mean, I saw one on Instagram today where like the AI carrier calls a real broker, and this broker's like, "Wait, is this AI?" Like, they can just tell within the first 20 seconds, and there's so many delayed responses, and I don't
That's
know.
just
The AI stuff it's like half baked at this point, if you ask me. Like,
taking out human connection, I think, is bad for business.
yeah,
But like, as an American, do I want those jobs to be in the U.S. and do I want Americans to be making good middle class wages on them? Of course, like there's no doubt about that. But if we're going to play the ball where it lies right now, at least I know now from seeing it that the people who are working those jobs aren't double brokers. They're like patriots who also love the fact that, like, love Americans, like they did it. So if we're going to play the ball where it lies, let it be there instead of letting let it be
that's some
there,
of the other
as opposed
options.
to
Yeah. And I mean,
as
I want
opposed
to
to
put
some of
this
the
out
other
there, right?
we have.
Most of the companies that are outsourcing out here are like born here, go to America, buy a truck, start making a big carrier somehow through hard work, and then they send the jobs back. Like, I want to just like highlight the fact that so many of the Serbian outsourced logistics jobs are given by people that were like born and raised here and then went to America chase the American dream and then send the jobs back. So like, they're not at this point mostly jobs that are just straight outsourced. Like, they're not like mostly American companies that are just like, oh, pick Serbia, like throw a dart at a map and start outsourcing there, like at this point in time. I'm sure that might change down the road. But anyways, man, talk to me about the food. We got to get out of here in 2 minutes. What do you think about Serbian
Yeah.
food? Because I've been traveling a lot, man, and something about Serbian food it's just different.
Dude, I'll tell you, at least because, and this is where Texas and Serbia are similar, because Texas knows its way around meat and bread, and so does Serbia. Like you got that in common. It's definitely different in some regards. Like you don't have beef ribs and that similar barbecue. But man, like I have not stopped thinking about that one restaurant we were at, and that
one restaurant was honestly insanity. Everything they put on the table is amazing.
And I forget what that's called, but the pork loin that's like smashed and then they roll it.
Yeah, what is that? That's like one of the best dishes, man. It's like one of my favorite dishes too.
It's some of the best food that we've ever had. And all my friends, like, because we were there, my wife was there, our friends Aaron and Katie, my parents, like all of them, like hands down, they couldn't believe how amazing it is. Like once again, like people go to Europe, Americans go to Europe. That's the thing. When I travel, I want to see the real place I'm going. Like going to Paris, going to a major city. It's like going to New York City. It's big, it's expensive. You go to, like, I've been to Bulgaria.
I like cheap travel, like local style travel.
I want to see the raw culture, and you get that in a place like Serbia because nobody, again, like your tourism,
it's not a touristy place. Like, we're landlocked. We don't have the seaside anymore. We're not a very touristy place. I mean, everywhere's pretty local, mostly locals.
And that's where you're going to get the better experience and the better food.
All right, Lombard, last question. We got to end it on the historic asset-based chicken wing choices, man. Haven't done this in what feels like years, man, but we got to run through it. If health and being healthy is not an option, what are your answers? When you eat chicken wings, are they breaded or non-breaded?
Whoa. No, they're breaded.
They're breaded. Okay. Are they drums or flats? Which one do you prefer?
The thing is, it's crazy because my wife is always a flats only type of order, and I'm just down to take it whenever. But if there is a preference, it's flats because I put the whole thing and then
you do the thing. You do the breaking the bone thing, and you can pull out a clean bone.
Yeah, freaking goes right in, suck it out clean.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I gotta learn how to do it. I'm a drums guy. Anyways, ranch or blue cheese on the dipping sauce?
It's ranch.
It's ranch. All right. I mean, you got 1 out of 2 questions, or 1 out of 3 questions right. So I guess we'll end it there. Shout out to Michael Lombard for coming out here to Serbia and becoming an honorary Serbian. Shout out to Michael Lombard and everything he's doing at Project 61 Truck Parking Club in the fitness space for drivers. Let's continue to push the fitness needle, man. And I look forward to seeing what we accomplish in the next year.
Likewise, man. Let's hammer down and get after it.
Take it easy, bro. That's going to wrap up the return of Podcast Asset Base. Couldn't have asked for a better guest, a better topic. And like I said, I mean, the fitness thing and logistics, it's not as, interesting, and it's not as hard as people make it seem. I mean, just make better choices, walk 20 minutes every day or two. It's going to change a lot of things for you. Cook more of your meals than buying them at truck stops. These are just basic things. If you need any help, I know Nick Klingensmith, Michael Lombard, and myself would be glad to help you on your fitness journey, anybody in logistics. And it's going to wrap it up for us today. This is actually just like about
2 men, 2 paths,
We're going to miss the bike cutoff.
1 mission,
The open water is a beast.
1 unforgettable story.
20 minutes out from the start of Ironman.
I'm having some regrets here, man. Dude, I want a better bike. Oh! Ah, there's Lombard.